Hello and welcome to Navigating the Chapters of Challenge with Tele. Today I've got Bola with me and we'll be discussing a topic that I find very, very interesting. But before we go into the topic, I'm going to ask Bola to introduce herself and just tell us a little bit about herself. Bola, say hello to everyone, please.
Hello, good morning, everyone, and happy International Women's, I should say belated Happy International Women's Day.
Yeah.
I am Bola. I am 50 odd years, getting close to 60, thank God. I am a HR professional, been in the field of HR for over 20 years. I'm a proud mother of three. First is 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, 30, 27 and 18. And that's me. And I'm a very good friend to Tele. Hi, Tele.
Hi, Bola. We've known each other for a number of years now.
Absolutely.
Since our university days. And and the friendship has been blossoming. Bola is more like a sister to me than a friend, but yeah.
Absolutely.
So today we're going to talk about a topic that I think a lot of women struggle with, and it's to do with their identity crisis. And the topic is, who am I? Who am I? Am I enough? As women, we struggle with our identity because we have so much to do. As women, we're just so busy, and it's something we go through all the time. So, Bola, who are you? Can you tell us who you are? And are you enough?
Yeah, exactly. So for that question, for me, what made me think about it is that when I look back over my life, I look back from the start where, being born in the United Kingdom during the 70s, having my primary school in the 70s, I would say that's where my struggle of trying to understand who I am actually started. 2 things stand out for me in my primary school that kind of led me down that path of, dare I say, feelings of insecurity, feelings that I wasn't enough. And I remember the first one was centered around my name.
Okay.
There was a morning that one of the teachers came into the class and he was taking the register. And I will never forget, in my mind's eye, I remember this teacher. He was a young adult male, white, of course, wearing a green jumper, glasses. And he stood up and he arched his arm like he was throwing a ball. And then he goes, "Who's Bola Ball?" And the whole class sniggered. Of course, my name is Adebola, but in school I was called Bola, but they can't pronounce Bola, so they called me Bola. So he arched his arm and he called me Bola Ball. And from that day onwards, people started calling me Bola Ball.
Oh, no.
I then developed a real insecurity. I don't want to say hatred, but I didn't like my name. Mm-hmm. And with all the will in the world, I would have changed my name. So that was one incident.
Yeah.
Now, in my school at the time, there were a lot of white people. There were a number of us black people and a few Asians that had come over from Uganda and Kenya. And with regard to the black people, there was a pecking order. So we had a lot of Jamaicans, people from the Caribbean. Now, in the 70s, growing up, and I grew up in an area called Harleston, which was a very rough and tumble area. The Jamaicans were very bolshy, very out there, very in your face. And they had a kind of disrespect or, treated us Africans with a lot of, it kind of treated us in a derogatory kind of way. And to a certain degree, the feelings were mutual because even Africans didn't really rate people from the Caribbean, the Jamaicans. So obviously that boiled down into the playground in school. So people, I was black, I was from an African heritage, and I got bullied from the Jamaicans, I got bullied from the white people. So I found out that I gravitated towards some of the Asians that had come from Africa and 1 or 2 African friends or Nigerian friends, from Ghana, from Nigeria, and 1 or 2 African countries. Yeah. That was all playing along. Then I remember one day, another incident in the playground. So there I am, squatted down on the playground. Back in those days, I don't know if anybody who grew up in the 70s remembers, we used to play with marbles. So I was playing with marbles on the drain, And I didn't realize that my mom was walking past the school because the school was very close to my house. And then my mom saw me kneeling down on the drain playing the marbles. And my mom was in our traditional African gear. Then all I hear is that, Bola, what are you doing there? I could have died, Telly.
That must have been embarrassing.
Could have opened me up and swallowed me. So there I am, playing with on the other occasions where I managed to play with my Jamaican white friends, playing the marbles, and my mom, walks past and speaks to me with that very heavy African tone, not a nice Jamaican patois tone, but the African tone.
Oh, dear.
And again, the teasing started again.
Oh, no.
And, yeah. So roll on a couple of years. I then go into secondary school, still in London. And then I thought, do you know what I'm going to do now? I'm changing my name. So the first thing I did was when I got into school, what's your name? Sharon. Sharon what?
Sharon.
Do not ask me why I thought of Sharon. The most awkward white name. No disrespect to all the Sharons, all the Shazas out there. But why Sharon, Telly? I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. Rose of Sharon?
Did I even know what Christianity was back in those days?
I don't know.
I haven't a clue. All I know, it was Sharon Shokunbi. So everything was fine. Everybody knew me as Sharon. I was building up my street cred, had a lot of friends, had some good Jamaican friends. I even had a little boyfriend back in then. I can't remember his name. Jamaican boyfriend. Really, really good, happening nicely. And then one day I go home and my dad's looking at my books and he's scrolling. He looks and he goes, who is Sharon? And I thought, oh, sugar. Yahweh is about to gas. I was like, so I'm mumbling on my breath. Who is Sharon? And I'm like, me, Dad. He said, lie. Who is Sharon? You go back to school the next day. Your name is Adebola. Adebola. That's the name we gave you. You go back to school the next day. You tell them to change. If you don't change it, I'm following you to school. I thought, okay, you know what? No need to be that dramatic. Don't follow me to school. I'll change my name.
Yeah.
So I had to go back to school the next day, trail between my legs and say, actually, can you change all my information? It's not Sharon, it's Adebola. So all of that is now playing on I've got all of that going on. So who am I? I'm this person of Nigerian heritage, but I don't fit in at school. At home, I'm trying to be myself, but God bless my parents. I love them to bits. But, our parents of that age, it was very much do as I say.
Yeah.
Don't talk back. Don't answer back. They, very, very directive. You're not allowed to think or feel. You just do as you're told.
Yeah.
Anyway, roll on. Parents now decide it's time for us to go back to Nigeria. And I am so excited. I'm going back to Nigeria. Everyone's going to have the same name as me. Everyone's as black as me. Everyone speaks like my mom and my dad. I'm not going to be different.
Yeah.
So we hop on the plane, get to Nigeria. I go to St. Anne's School, Molete Ibadan, really excited. And there I am. Then I go to class one day and I'm talking and the whole class goes silent. And I notice everyone nudging each other and sniggering. And I'm thinking, I get a sense of deja vu. Being here, done that. What are they sniggering? What are they laughing about? And then I cottoned on. It was my accent.
Yeah.
It was my accent. And then the name calling started. Hey, Oyibo Pepe. Hey, this and that. What did they used to call me? Adebota. Hey, look at her.
Bola London.
Omo London. Hey, look at her. And then there was this conception that children that came from London were kind of dumb and slow and stupid. So derogatory Yoruba terms like didirin or de and things like that. Now, I'm not saying that my secondary school was all bad, but it wasn't all great. That was the sadder, harder side of secondary school for me. So I grew up very much fighting my way through secondary school. I got into fights because people would call me names and automatically I had to prove to them, I'm not a didirin, I'm not this, I'm not. There were I had a one or two fights. Even up to university, I still got into one or two fights because it was like a constant battle to prove who I am and not to conform to the name that people were giving me. And for me trying to show that I am enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, so I don't know. So for me, that's where the struggle started.
Okay.
And it didn't help that growing up, a little bit about my background. So my mom was a nurse. My dad he did admin, but God rest my dad. Very good father, but unfortunately, he wasn't a great provider.
Yeah.
So my mom had to carry a lot of the financial burden in the home. So, of course, you're then growing up in Nigeria. And, of course, Nigeria is a bit of a materialistic environment. So you're growing up with people having big houses, big cars, but you're trying, you're struggling along. Even within the family, you find that people gravitate towards the people that have money in the family, and you that don't really have so much money, they kind of relegate you. So again, I'm still trying to navigate. Who am I? Am I enough? Because I didn't feel like I was enough.
Yeah.
I always felt that I was coming up short. And then moving into university where I met you, we were in the same hall together. We had so much fun.
Yeah.
But Tele, it was a struggle for me because I never felt that I was enough. I never felt that I was good enough. I didn't wear the latest clothes, money was tight, and you say to people, oh, but that shouldn't really matter. Don't be unfair to people. It does matter as a young person when you're growing up because you want to fit in, you want to belong.
Yeah, you want to be like your peers.
Out that you're forcing yourself to belong. You're acting like you belong, but you don't really belong because you still don't feel that you're good enough.
So this is where all of that started from when you were very young.
Yeah.
So as you grew older, were you not able to overcome that? What?
I tried.
How did it? Okay.
Right from when I was in secondary school, we had something in secondary school in those days called SU. Yeah. So I started to look at Christianity, started to look at being a born again Christian right from that stage, flipping in and out, joining the so-called SU group, but not wanting to be seen with them, but still realizing that I needed something to enable me to feel like I was enough. So that followed through with my university, where I again continued that journey with God, but not really dedicating my life as such, but knowing that I wanted something more for myself.
Yeah.
And I think for me, where I felt I would probably get that was by coming back to the United Kingdom. So I left Nigeria in 1990. Immediately, I finished my first degree in English, and I didn't serve because I was posted to Sokoto, and I thought, forget that, I'm not going to Sokoto. And I didn't have the energy to start doing all the bribery and all of that to make sure I stayed in Lagos. So I just said, forget the service here. I need to come back to London. I need to start my life. I need to be in an environment whereby it's not who I know, but it's what I can do.
Yeah.
So I came back to London. And in coming back, I met my husband, got married, the usual kind of thing, conforming, you leave university, you get married, you have children. So I did that. Yeah. And things were great for a while. And I was beginning to feel I knew who I was finding myself, I am enough.
Yeah.
And then I got into a job, which was a nice job, starting job. And there was this young man in the workplace who we were good friends with. And he kind of saw something in me and he said, look, then I was, because of what happened with my name, my professional work name is not Bola. It's always Ade. Yeah. Always Ade, because I'm not going to go through people calling me Bola. I hate it with a vengeance.
Yeah.
So my work, he said, Ade, you can do so much better. You could become a contract manager, earn a bit more. So he schooled me. He took me under his wing. So there was a contract manager role. I applied for it. He literally told me what I needed to say in the interview. Yeah. And I went in, did all that, and I got the job role. And I was so proud of myself. I was like, wow, this is me. I'm doing well. I'm a contract manager. And I'm on a salary of about £18,000. I mean, this was a time where people were still earning 10,000, 11,000, 12,000. I'm on 18. Wow, I've landed. I've arrived. I was really pleased with myself. So got home, shared the news with my husband, with friends that were close to me, and it was good.
Yeah.
Until a couple of months into the role, hubby then drops a bombshell, because my role meant that I had to go. I was a contract manager, so I had to go out to various training providers. I'd go into work, I'd have my training providers to see, so I'd do a lot of traveling around to see them. They turned around and said, I'm not enthused with the idea of my wife going out and about and going to different organizations, that basically you have to leave this job.
Wow. So he asked you to leave the job?
I was like, really? Why? I'm not happy with it. You have to leave the job.
Wow. So, how did that make you feel?
Behold, awful. Like, really? But I was born, I was in the school with being taught that when you get married, it's not about your needs, it's about the needs of the man. A woman builds a home, a woman keeps her home together. Okay. So I left the job. And
that must have knocked your confidence completely.
Sorry?
It must have knocked your confidence completely.
Absolutely, Telly. It was a crushing blow. So therein began my journey of taking jobs that didn't suit me, but suited my circumstances, suited the needs of my husband, suited the needs of the children. And therein began the journey of losing myself.
And I think this is what happens to a lot of women. We just take on the needs of the family and we forget about ourselves. And it's like, okay,
Absolutely.
I have to be there for the children. I have to be there for the husband. I have to take care of the home. I have to feed everybody. And you're just running back and forth, just trying to meet all those needs, and you totally forget about yourself. So when you started taking on these jobs, how did you feel doing that? Jobs that were I don't want to say beneath you, but I don't know what other phrase to use, but jobs that you shouldn't be doing.
Jobs that I could have done better.
Yes.
You know, I would see those jobs, I would look at them, I'd go, no, this is not for me.
Yeah.
So I ended up taking safe roles, if that makes sense. But even in between taking those safe roles, I had some really horrible managers as well. So I had 1 or 2 roles whereby the managers were awful. And of course, when that was happening, again, I'm thinking, why me? Is there something about me that just makes people feel like I'm a whipping person? That, you know, just tread all over Bola. It doesn't matter. You know, she can, you know, who is she? She's not up there, you know, just tread all over her. But I thank God for during this period that I was still surrounded by women that were inspirational, that were inspiring. You know, I had friends that were doing well and excelling in what they were doing. So that gave me the encouragement, because at one point, you know, I was tired of the kind of roles I was getting, and I realized I wanted a bit more. And somebody suggested that, oh, you know, it seems like you're really good with people. Why don't you do HR? I'd never heard of HR before. What was HR? Didn't have a clue. Anyway, found out a bit more. Went into university, got the form, went to Middlesex University Business School. I decided to do a master's degree in human resource management. And and that was one of the best decisions of my life, to say. Again, what I wanted to do, I mean, I'm, you know, no disrespect to my ex, he's not here to defend himself. But again, the knocking, you know, if, you know, he probably doesn't realize it, but for men, what I will say is that encourage your wives.
Yeah.
Because every time you knock them, you're killing something within their spirit, and you're killing something within their spirit that you actually need to be alive.
Yeah.
So when I told him that I wanted to do my master's, he was like, I want to go back to, I'm going back to Nigeria, right? And I need the family in Nigeria. How long is your master's going to take? I said, well, 2 years. He said, I haven't got that kind of time. So you need to think long and hard about
He
doing
said
your
what?
masters. He said, I haven't got that kind of time. That you need to think long and hard about doing your master's. That when he's ready for us to go back, that what's going to happen. But I thank God, because that was an occasion when I thought, no, I'm doing my master's. I need to do this for me. So I started my master's. I funded my master's. And I got my master's degree in human resource management. And one of, just walking across that stage, Telly, to collect my degree was one of the most proudest moments, even much more than my first degree, because I knew the cost.
Yeah.
The cost of studying while raising a family. I remember when my daughter was doing her 11 plus, and I was trying to get my project done. I've forgotten what it's called. Thinking to myself, I can't do this. I can't, to take my daughter through her 11 plus, look after the home. And my husband was not in London at the time. He was shuttling London and Nigeria. So I was literally more or less running the home and doing my master's, trying to get my project sorted and everything. This is too much for me. I had to ring into uni and say, I'm going to defer.
Yeah.
But I deferred, which would have meant I would have not have graduated with my peers.
Yeah.
But you know what? God is faithful. Somehow he saw me through. And I managed to walk that stage with my peers, with the same set of people that I started with. And for me, that was so much. My master's was definitely blood, sweat, and tears. In the middle of the night. And then in between that, I had my son.
Yeah.
I remember rocking my son to sleep with a bottle in his mouth and me typing my project.
Wow.
So I'm rocking him in the cradle right now, literally with one leg, and typing my project on the screen. And I know that this is just not my story, because there are many women out there
doing
that
the same.
Testify to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was still working, Tilly. three jobs.
Three.
No, not three jobs. I was working 3 days in a week.
Okay.
So doing all that, and money was tight because hubby is shuttling between Nigeria and London, and all the investments going into Nigeria. So all of that is happening. And I'm just thinking about it now, and I'm thinking, how on earth did I do that? But it clearly was God.
It was God.
It was clearly was God. So I got my master's degree, got all of that. And in between all of that, just as I was coming out of it, things were getting better. I then had a terrible shock in my marriage, whereby something that shook my marriage to the core. And I started a 10-year journey before my marriage eventually broke down, and I separated in 2019.
Okay.
So all of this is going on.
Yeah.
Who am I? Am I enough? At that moment in life, I was not enough, Telly. I was struggling. And the struggle for me was real. The struggle led to me suffering from alopecia, severe hair loss, because it was a lot of pressure. What else? Yeah, it was tough. It was hard. I didn't know who I was. I didn't even think comfortable in who I was. I didn't think I was enough. I could just about keep things moving. But again, I still thank God for good friends.
Yeah.
You were there. I remember coming to the house and telling you and talking to you and Fela, and we were talking one day, and we were talking, and I don't know what you said, and I said, "Oh, Telly, can't you notice that there's no ring on my hand?" And I don't know if you remember.
I don't
Telly,
remember the story,
said, I don't know if you can remember. And I said, "There's no ring because I'm not married anymore," and I could see the look of horror on you and Fela's face.
Not horror, shock.
Kind of horror and shock. And you looked at me with so much shock, horror, dismay, unhappiness. And he was like, he said, "Can you work it through? Can you work it out?" And I said, "I don't think so."
I remember now.
Yeah.
I remember now. Yeah. But you said something earlier on. You said that when the marriage, you discovered something in the marriage and it shook the marriage to the core, but it took you 10 years. Do you want to talk about that? Because I know that this is something that happens to a lot of women out there. They know the marriage isn't working. They know things are not going okay, but they stay there. And a lot of them stay in marriages that are damaging to them emotionally, physically. And I think it's all down to do with this identity thing as well, because the identity has been entrenched in that marriage. So it's like, how do I get out of this? What will people say? Do you want to talk on that a bit? Because I think this is something that we need to discuss.
Yeah. So obviously, I'm not going to go too deep.
No, we don't. You don't need to.
I've got my children that I think about, and I do not want this to define them, just like it doesn't define me.
Yeah, you don't need to go into the details.
But what I can say, in HR, we have something that we call norming, storming, forming.
Yeah.
I think you've heard of that.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
That's what I went through in those 10 years. So when the incident happened and good-willed people were advising me, it was all around, no, we know this has affected you, but you've got to stay because what will people think? How is it going to affect your children? So that was the storming bit, the grief bit. They're like, oh my God, you know what, this thing has really hurt me. It's really caught me to the quick, but I've got to stay. I've got to weather the storm. I've got to be there for the children. I've got to, what will other people think? And I remember going out with a friend of mine and we were talking about marriage in general, and she's made a very, what to me was a very cutting comment about, how when her children are much older, they want to get married. She will never let her children marry anybody whose child comes from a broken home. And I thought to myself, wow. So this is how, if I decide to leave, this is how they're going to perceive my children, that they come from a broken home. I was like, can I afford to do that to my children? And then I was speaking to another person who was a pastor, and she alluded to the stigma. So here you are, you're hearing words like stigma, broken home, dysfunction. I was like, wow. So all of these words, Telly, powerful words, will weigh me down. So these are some of the words that kept me bound for those 10 years. And then there was the financial side of things. So no matter, I was talking about money was hard. But guess what? No matter how hard money was, there were two of us.
Yeah.
So there were two of us supporting that environment of hard money.
Yeah.
If I was to leave the marriage, me at that point, I was still doing like 3 days per week, 4 days per week, not on a huge salary. How am I going to cope? How am I going to suddenly leave and be responsible for maybe rent or a mortgage? What's going to happen to me? I've got my, I do things in my own role. I support my external family. I have a bit of money in my pocket. What's going to happen if I decide to leave? Again, all of those things held me bound.
Yeah.
And as I'm growing through the marriage, those things that were holding me bound, as I was going through the marriage, and slowly but surely, I started to find who I was.
Okay.
I started to aim a bit higher for myself. I started to have a bit more aspirations for myself. I started to grow some confidence. In the midst of all the chaos, I found Christ. And Christ began to talk to me. Christ began to minister to me. Christ began to tell me that you are the apple of my eye. You are enough.
Yeah.
Believe in me. Trust in me. And I can turn things around for you. And I started to believe. I started to have a sense that I can hope for better for myself. So when people were telling me to stay, a part of me was saying, no, I'm not staying. I'm going to go. So my prayer shifted. My prayer moved from Lord, help me to stay to Lord, help me to leave.
Okay.
Lord, this is not working for me anymore. I am not happy. I'm deeply unhappy. I went into marriage thinking I wanted to serve and be served, but I don't want to serve anymore. I want to be served, but I want to serve myself. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm unhappy. I don't want to show my children what an unhappy marriage looks like anymore. If it's not working, then it needs to end. And I prayed. And I prayed and I prayed for it to end. For some people out there might be saying, why would you pray for something to end? I prayed for it to end because I knew it wasn't me anymore. It wasn't for me anymore.
Did anybody... Sorry
go on.
to stop you there. Did anybody say to you that you were being selfish?
Oh, yeah, I got all of that. But I truly had to pray for my well-being. I had to pray for my well-being and accept the fact that, I had to pray for my well-being and accept the fact that what had happened to me had badly affected me. And the only way that I could ever really be whole was to take time out for myself. And being whole and taking time out for myself, unfortunately, meant that I had to leave.
And you were praying to leave.
It wasn't just that. And I would say one thing to men as well. Be friends with your wives, because when you're really good friends with your wives, when the problem comes, it helps you to overcome it a bit more easier. But if you're not necessarily friends with your wives, when the problem comes, it makes it that much more difficult as a woman to kind of say, I want to endure and I want to go through this. Obviously there is another side, because I'm saying I want to leave.
Yeah.
I wanted to leave. Like you rightly said, people would say that was very selfish of me. But I just knew that unfortunately my ex wasn't able to help me anymore. He wasn't able to help me.
Did you tell him you wanted to leave at any point during this 10 years?
I told him I was very unhappy. I told him that I was deeply, deeply unhappy. But
What did he say?
I don't think he realized my depth of how deeply unhappy I really was. I was very, very unhappy. To the outside world, happy, clappy, bubbly, everything's going on. But there was a real unhappiness, and a real pain within me.
So when you said you were deeply unhappy, what was his response? What did he do? Did he do anything to change the situation? Did he do anything at all?
He tried, but it wasn't enough.
Okay.
And I'll just leave it at that, because he's not here to defend himself.
Yeah, I get that.
But so he tried, but it wasn't enough.
So you mentioned something about the stigma. People talk about stigma from divorce. Why is there a stigma? If it's not working, why should people be stigmatized when they leave? Especially women. It seems like the stigma falls more onto the side of the women. Why do you think that is?
Because in our culture, there is one thing that as Nigerians, as Yoruba people in particular, we stand on one particular verse from the Bible. A woman builds her home.
Okay.
And when a woman leaves, we have this saying in Yoruba that God for so in Yoruba it means that you will not leave your load, kind of a thing. So
your property.
And your load is what you have built up together, the big house,
Okay.
the cars, the children. How can you be so stupid to walk away from all of that? The house, the car, the children. How can you be stupid to walk away from that? They see a woman who leaves the home as being stupid, as being foolish. I had someone say to me that, oh, if you have friends that are advising you to leave, don't listen to them. Oh, I was so mad with the individual. I said, you are talking to me, a woman over 50. Are you telling me that I'm stupid, that I'm foolish, that I don't know what I want to do with my life? How dare you? How dare you? And he backed down. But that's the mentality, that a woman doesn't have a brain, that a woman can't think for herself, that a woman is not a deep thinker, that she doesn't think deeply, that how can you leave what you've been so blessed with? I left. And guess what? I've still got my children. To God be the glory. My children have not left me. Yes, I've left the massive big house. Yes, I've left the fancy car. But I'm still standing. And I've still got my children. And I've got my identity and I've got my peace of mind.
You've got your sanity.
I've got my sanity.
Yeah.
It's not easy, Tele, because obviously, before we came on to the show, I was feeling, I called you just some minutes before we came onto the show, and I was a bit upset because I'd done an investment, and unfortunately, I'd lost a fair sum of money, and I wasn't. And I thought, how can I come onto the show and talk about being enough when here I am? I'm not enough in my financial life. When you leave a marriage, that's what happens, because then you have to be financially savvy and financially responsible for yourself. It's a responsibility. Because people look at you and sometimes people mock you and say, oh, how stupid was she? She could have been okay financially, but she chose to leave. But what do you want to have? Do you want that financial security but be miserable every day of your life? You get into the car and you drive the fancy car, but you're crying in that fancy car.
Yeah.
Or you're in that big house, you're cleaning that big house, but you're weeping inside of you. And remember, the children will grow up and leave. And the children that we have today, they will tell you that I didn't ask them. The one thing that they will say to you is that I didn't ask you to stay.
Yeah, and that's what happens a lot of times. The children are seeing all these things that are going on. And sometimes we think that they don't see what's happening, but they do see. And they know that you need to leave. Sometimes they know you need to leave, but they can't tell you to leave. And when you stay there and you're suffering, they're suffering as well.
Absolutely.
They're suffering as well.
Absolutely. So roll on. I left 2019. I started my life as back in the single world, but of course, carrying the baggage of all the naysayers, all the negativity, okay, I'm separated now. Gosh, I better keep that a secret. I'm only going to tell a few people that are very close to me. I moved, didn't really invite anybody around because I didn't want anybody to know my circumstances, didn't really tell the extended family members. All of that is playing out in my mind. I've got to keep it a secret, And then as time went on, getting back into the workplace proper, really beginning to pursue my career, things are looking up and I'm thinking, this is me, this is who I am. I'm separated, I'm doing it alone and things are going okay and I can do this alone and I can get back to that place of dreaming, of having hope and aspiration and believing good things for myself. And guess what? I am enough. I am enough. Who am I? This is me. Bola, Olufunke, going out there, living my life, going out, going on holidays, doing things. Still not financially secure, I have to say, but I'm still managing to do things and, and then I got my job with the House of Commons and life was sweet. And, I was being told, you're getting such positive vibes in the workplace and blah, blah, blah. And then, but unfortunately, going into the House of Commons, it was a part-time role. It was a fixed-term contract. So there I was like, Lord, before my fixed-term contract ends, I know you're going to do wonders for me. I'm going to be in another job. I will not be jobless and blah, blah, blah. So there I am going for interview after interview after interview. Tele, I did around 11 or 12 interviews. I was not, both in the House of Commons, both externally. Not a single one of them did I get a job offer. And I'm like, hold on a minute.
What's going on here?
What's going on? And this is me. I work in HR. I mentor people through doing job interviews. Looking at people's CVs, doing mock interviews, and I can't get a job. I can't get a job. So suddenly, all of that kind of confidence and self-assuredness, and yes, I'm enough. Slowly but surely, it starts dripping again. Dripping again, until eventually my job ended with the House of Commons and I was out of work. And I was like, OMG, I'm out of work. I've got a mortgage to pay. My son's with me. I've got all of these things. I've got all of these expenses that I'm carrying. How am I going to get through this? God, this is not what we discussed.
Yeah.
I believed you. I trusted you. I said at the beginning of the year, we got the message. There was one message that we had at church that year that I can't remember what the message was, but the message something around maybe the time is now.
Okay.
And I thought the time is now. I'm not going to be out of work. I walked in faith. I believed. I fasted. I prayed. And I don't have a job. I'm not going to go and benefit God because that's not what's in the pipeline for me.
Yeah.
So I started again, slinging out my CV, going for interviews, first week, second week, third week, fourth week, fifth week. At this time, I'm throwing tantrums with God. I'm
like
really
we all do,
like a petulant, spoiled child. God. I said I want to give the testimony. What's happening to my testimony? There's no testimony that is coming. I'm basically throwing. I was so ungracious. Very, very ungracious. Oh, yes, I was still praying and doing all of that, but I was very ungracious. Father, what's the meaning of this? And then eventually, when the job was not forthcoming, I had to go and sign on. I said, well, I better go and sign on. Because this one that I don't know when I'm going to get job now. Let me go and sign on.
So you signed on?
I signed on.
That must have knocked you out, your confidence
it's so
completely.
Funny, as God does things. The week that I signed on, I got a job offer. I got an offer through the agency.
Oh,
so
dear.
I signed on that week. The following week, when I had to go and do the second bit of signing on and the job interview and this, that, and the other, I said to them, well, I'm going for an interview this week. So I'm signing on now, but I don't know what the outcome. Anyway, the long and short of it, the following week I was offered the job. I then so I had to go back to DSS and say, I've got a job. So basically, the long and short, how much did I get from DSS for signing on? £88.
Okay.
I got £88, but I was in a job. So I stayed in that job for about 3 weeks, but it was in Lewisham. It was a backward move for me, and I hated it. Oh, I did not like this job. As God would have it, I got another job offer, and it was with the NHS.
Yeah.
Much nicer work environment. And when I went for the interview, I got offered the role. The feedback that they gave the agency was that they know that I don't have NHS experience, but they just felt that I gave something to the interview, and they want to take me on. And that was... And suddenly I went from throwing my tantrums with God to say, hey, thank you, Lord, thank you, Jesus, Father, you hadn't forgotten me, you love me. And I had enough. And, and I started in that role. And unfortunately, it was a bit of a toxic environment, so I knew I couldn't stay there long, but that was okay. And then the agency called me up, and they were like, "Oh, we've got a job. It's a head of HR." And I was like, "No, I'm not really interested." And a friend of mine told me about exactly the same job. I was like, "You know what? Head of HR in Stevenage. I'm not interested. And besides, I don't have enough NHS background, and I've been trying to apply to the NHS, and I haven't had so much luck. Let me just continue in this role. Let me get a bit more experience, and yeah, we'll see." And then the agency kept calling me, Adi, let me give them your CV. This is the job. I said, okay, the interview's on Friday, and I'm like, Friday, what time? 9 o'clock. Where? Stevenage. Do you know where I live? I live in Uxbridge. Where is Stevenage? How many miles is that? I'm not sure. Anyway, long and short of it, Telly, I got the job, JD. I looked at it and I went, oh, this looks very interesting. So, and then the agency had told me to look up the people that would be interviewing. So I went on to LinkedIn, I looked them up, and I looked at the person that would potentially be my line manager. And she wrote something in her LinkedIn, do it do it scared. And it just resonated with me. And I thought, do it scared. And I looked at the job description, I looked at it, and something said to me, you can do this. You can do this. So, long and short of it, drove down to Stevenage that Friday morning, did the interview, did it scared. They were asking me, I said, look, I don't really have NHS experience, but what I do have is my many years of working in HR, House of Commons. I've worked for an top market independent school, Westminster School, one of the top private schools in the country. I've worked for an academy. I've worked, basically gave them my itinerary, spoke about who I was.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, go home. By 2:00, got the phone call to say they'd offered me the job role.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it, Telly. This job that I'm in right now, it's amazing. I started out as head of people partnering and change. I'm now heading up our employee relations team. I'm heading up our people hub. When I started this conversation, you said, tell me a bit about myself. I didn't say what my position was because it was a journey to get to where I am right now. I spoke about being, working in Westminster School. I was the HR director there. I was bullied out of that role. I was bullied out of that role. It knocked my confidence. I didn't think I was good enough. I was like, I didn't want to put it on my CV because I was like, how do I tell people that I was at 1 minute I'm a director and the next minute I'm now back to being a HR manager or HR business partner. But now I look at all of that and I see it was a journey. And it was a journey of God showing me who I am and telling me that I am enough.
Exactly. And, this, everything we've been talking about here is like a cycle kind of. There have been cycles of highs and lows. And that's what we all go through. As women, as people generally, we go through seasons where we have the good times and we have the low times, And I just wanted you to talk on that. Just a word of advice for people or women out there, because this is more about women. When you're going through those situations when your confidence has been knocked, what can you do? How do you get yourself back? Because at that point, it's kind of like you lose yourself. How do you get yourself back? How do you get back to being who you really are and who God has called you to be?
Well, Tele, just like you, I'm a crier. Because I know you cry very easily, and so do I.
You didn't have to tell everybody that, did you?
Tele, you're a crier.
I know.
We both know
we all know that.
And I'm a crier too. Embrace it. We cry.
We express ourselves. Let's say we're expressive.
We express ourselves through our pain. Through our pain, we cry.
Yeah.
So I cry.
Yeah.
I cry, and I cry a bit, and I cry a bit more.
Yeah.
And then after crying, I find my safe space, which is my few small cohort of trusted friends.
Yeah.
Who I then talk through my pain to, and I say, this is where I'm at. I'm in pain. This is hurting me. I don't know what to do. I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I'm worthy enough. I don't do the why me because I try my utmost best to say what not to say, why me, because why not you? Because there are people going through worse things in the world.
Yeah.
So I really shy away from why me. And I would always say to people, please, no matter the pain, please try not to say why me. Because no matter how bad our pain is, there are people who are going through so much more worse pain than we are.
Yeah.
So embrace whatever it is that is hurting you. Don't downplay it because you don't want to do that. Pain is pain.
Yeah.
Pain is pain, but surround yourself with good. Because I have two favorite sayings. Your network is your net worth, and you cannot be an eagle and walk with chickens.
Yeah.
So you need to know who you surround yourself with. You need to know who your safe space is. Find that one person, male or female, young or old, because I have been blessed by people that are younger than me, much younger than me. I get my learning from anyone. Do not close yourselves. Be open to who can help you. So find your safe space, talk through, pray, because praying is still key.
Yeah.
You still, even through the pain, even this morning when I was really upset thinking about what I had lost,
Mm.
we spoke today and we prayed. So
Yeah.
you have to pray.
Yes.
So find that person who will walk that journey with you and who will encourage you when you're in that low valley, who will encourage you, and if you don't have that person, please, for God's sake, find that person.
Find that
Do
person.
not walk that walk alone. Nobody needs to go through life being alone. Everybody has somebody who can help them. Please find that help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get help.
Get help. Get help. Get help. Get help. Get help. Get help.
Don't
That's
walk
very
that
important.
journey by yourself.
Yeah.
When I talked about that 10 years of not knowing who I was in my marriage, because I didn't go through those 10 years knowing straight away that I wanted to leave. I had a very good friend who was walking close by me. She would sit there. She would allow me to talk. She would allow me to cry. She never judged. But she sat there and she listened. Find someone who is willing to listen to you, who's going to help you through your feelings, through your pain. But who will not allow you to wallow in your pain, because at some point you need to work through that pain. And that's what I've always had to do. Taylor, you've given me some brilliant words, when I was speaking through, one of the things you said, you fall down, you get up, arise. Stand up and take baby steps to work through that pain. No condition is permanent. And trust God. Find something in the Bible to comfort you. Tele, for me, my comfort is Psalm 23.
I was just going to ask you for scriptures that you use, so you just
for me,
you read my mind. So go on.
I read Psalm 23 because every single line in Psalm 23 has a message. Every single line, right from the very beginning, where you say, "The Lord is my shepherd." Then the bits where I walk, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup overflows. I don't do half empty, half full. I do overflowing. I do overflowing.
I like that.
Is it easy to always look at your cup as overflowing? No, it's not. We will always have our valley moments. Like I said, I had one this morning before I came on air. I almost said to you, Telly, that I don't feel worthy of having this talk about am I enough? Because I don't feel like I'm enough right now, especially with regards to my finances. But you were like, no, that you're feeling this way for a reason and for a purpose. To really come on air and to speak to someone and to say, we don't always have to be all singing, all dancing, all flying every single moment. No. And yes, there are women out there that are changing the world and are doing wonderful, great and awesome things. But guess what? You are equally enough in the things that you are doing.
Exactly.
You are enough. When you wake up in the morning and you go out and you smile at someone, or you go out and you're smiling through your own pain at someone else, you are enough. Because that person that you smiled at, you don't know what they're going through. That smile, that word, that cheery word that you just dropped on them probably was all that they needed to see and to hear. You are enough. At work we had International Women's Day, and it's funny because exactly what I'm talking about was what they spoke about at International Women's Day, because the woman is our chairman for the NHS that I work for. And we had two other previous speaking. One was a gynecology doctor, very high-flying women. And the first thing she said when she came on to give her own little talk was to say, I want to say to every single one of you women on this call, regardless of where you are in life at this moment in time, regardless of what you're doing, regardless of what you're going through, you are enough. And I thought to myself, bingo. This is what I'm going to talk about on Saturday. This is God speaking. And I just want to reiterate that regardless of what you are, what you're doing, what you're going through, you are enough. I'm a magistrate now. I had thought about being a magistrate when my oldest daughter was around 4 or 5. I never pursued it. What made me, about 27 odd years later, then become a magistrate was my cousin. I have a cousin, and we really bounce off each other. And she's younger than me. That's what I was saying. age is not a barrier. You can learn from anybody. Do not despise anyone who is younger than you. Look at them, see learning and help in every person that comes across your way. So she went to, she applied for a magistrate role. And I remember that, yeah, me too, I wanted to be a magistrate, Claire. So I went forward, I put my application in. Guess what? I got through, she didn't.
So she was just a stepping stone. God just used her to show you,
that you could do that. Things right now. So she's going to reapply, and I said, okay, we'll work through it again. Together. So what am I saying with that? That the journey is it's not a, when they say that thing about not being a sprint, it's a marathon. It really is a marathon. And my life is a testament to that, because remember when I started the journey, this conversation, I started talking about those feelings of inferiority complex, of feelings that I didn't fit in, that I wasn't enough, that I never felt secure in myself. And here I am, over 50 odd years later, getting close to being 60. And suddenly I know, not suddenly, but through that journey, I know who I am. I know that I am enough. And someone out there, as women, we are enough.
We are enough. We are enough. Oh, thank you so much. I don't know where the time goes when we start this conversation. But we've spent, the time is already, we've spent all the time that we have, but we'll just leave it at this point and just say, yes, you are enough. There's a song that's been coming to my mind since we started, and it's the song, God of the Hills and Valleys. He's the God of the hills and valleys, and our lives are always lives where we go through seasons of hills and valleys. I think I mentioned it earlier. And so if you're going through a valley season, just hold on to God, like Bola has said. If you're in a hill season, thank God for that as well. Absolutely. Just remember that in every season, you are enough. You are enough. Bola, quickly, I always like to end this on a note of hope. So quickly, anything you can say, final words, just in 2 minutes.
Do you know
before
what?
We end.
Live your best life. And that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm living my best life. To God be the glory. Not I, but Christ. Regardless of your circumstances, life is beautiful. Wake up in the morning. Look at the rain and thank God. Look at the sun and thank God. In everything, really and truly, please, please, please give thanks and remember you are enough.
You are enough. Oh, thank you so much, Bola. It's been really, really nice having this conversation with you, and hopefully we'll have you back again to discuss something else with us. And
I hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for giving me this platform. It's been really great just having this opportunity. Thank you so much. And keep up the great work with all these. I've listened to all the podcasts.
Thank you.
It's blessed me in so many ways.
Thank you so much.
And if you haven't listened to all the podcasts, please do, because they are all linked and they will be a blessing they will definitely be a blessing to you. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you so much, Bola. That's really, really nice of you. Thank you. And God bless, and we'll catch up with you again soon sometime.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. So thank you all very much. It's been nice having you here with us again today on Navigating the Chapters of Challenge, and hopefully you'll be with us again sometime soon. Take care and God bless everyone. God bless.